The word echo, I think, in English, is a beautiful word. It is very deaf, too. The interpreter is now echoing what I'm saying right now, and if you're reading the captions, those are an echo, too. Interpreters also echo what people might say, ask, discuss. My world is full of echoes. The title of my show is All Day, All Night. And this idea of all day, all night speaks to how I work, how I function, how I keep going. And it also speaks to the idea of obsession. I obsess over little things. I'm always thinking about sound, social norms, deafness. I have things in my mind all the time, all day, all night. I basically lose a lot of sleep over it. So, welcome to All Day, All Night. My name is Christine Sun Kim. I go by CK. I'm from California, and I'm now based in Berlin. I'm excited to be here to be showing my first career-to-date survey exhibition here at the Whitney Museum of American Art. So when I was fresh out of grad school, I got a job here in 2007 as an educator. And at that time, the only tours that were available were with hearing educators and interpreters. I suggested that we should start doing tours in ASL, from deaf educators to deaf audiences. And that's how we came up with Whitney Signs and the vlog project.
Papa was known for his sense of isolation in the world.
It's surreal to see myself showing here. From where I started to where I am now, having a full circle moment. I'm back as an artist with a solo exhibition with a team of curators who at least know basic ASL. So here we are. Now we are here on the 8th floor, which is the beginning of my exhibition and shows most of my works to date. The floor is broken up into theme sections around sound, early work, trauma, future. I'm really excited about the mural here behind me. This is a new one, which is site-specific to the Whitney. I work with Jake Kent. He is a painter who has painted many of my murals around the world. And working with Jake is exactly like the process that I have when I work with interpreters. These relationships require building trust, rapport, and that's the same thing that I have with Jake. So in the beginning of the process, I have a piece of paper that I will draw out with charcoal and kind of measure out. I take a picture of that. I send it to Jake. He then projects it onto the wall. This is titled Ghosted Notes. And basically, I'm looking at the notes as if they were people. Like, look over here. This note here could be named Denise, and this note could be called Beth. And you can see the staff lines here. As they move along, they're ghosting the notes. They're trying to avoid the notes. You can see that in the movement of the lines. And really, basically, the notes have no idea they're being ghosted. They're just existing. Because if they're not on the lines, then that means there's no sound. So that's my mural. Now here we are in the trauma room. I'll show you the sign for trauma in American Sign Language. To sign trauma, you need to have your finger like this so that you can scratch. And trauma is a scratch on your mind. It's in your memory forever. And some people sign trauma with a scratch on their mind and their heart to indicate where their trauma lies. And if you have even worse trauma, you want to up the trauma, you can then use all your fingers to scratch. I've been thinking a lot about trauma. I love EMDR therapy. I'm currently in it. And as I've been going through the process of learning what trauma means, how to define trauma, and to learn better why I react so strongly to traumatic moments, I started getting obsessed. And that brought me to this drawing behind me, which is titled Trauma, comma, and the comma allows the viewer to take a pause, and then LOL. And the LOL is in response to the trauma. The drawing has the text trauma upon trauma upon trauma in a full circle. And it then becomes a face. So trauma has a face, I guess. And you can see there's eyes and a mouth. The eyes say important to cool, and the mouth says stay positive. And for the eyes, I use ASL grammar, which borrows English wording to say important cool, which is another way to say I'm trying to keep my cool. I gotta stay calm, calm down, don't lose your shit. And then the mouth says stay positive, which is a commentary on toxic positivity, being a little delulu. In 2020, I had the huge honor to perform the national anthem and America the Beautiful at the Super Bowl on behalf of the National Association for the Deaf. And I was working with one of my longtime interpreters, Beth Staley. Her and I flew to Miami, Florida, and found ourselves in the rehearsal, and it was very quick. And we realized that we were going to have to come up with some kind of way for me to perform my songs and for Beth to give me the cues so that I could stay apace with the singer. Because if the singer was holding a note and I signed on without the next word, it became a matter of staying on the singer's time and not getting ahead. And so I made a video piece about that experience titled Cues on Point. And I decided to turn the camera away from me and onto the interpreter as my homage to all the interpreters that I've worked with over all these years. I have a wonderful core team of interpreters from all over the world. And you can see how Beth cued me to make sure that I stayed in the same time as the singer. Now, I wasn't looking at her head on. I had her in my peripheral. And so she wasn't using full signs, perhaps one or two, but she was making sure that she was essentially conducting me. Now you can see the text rolling up the screen like a teleprompter. The text there are my notes. These are not a direct translation from English into ASL, but instead these are my written cues for myself so that I have words to remind myself of what signs to use for my translation, overlapping with Beth's cues. I was going through a phase where I was obsessing about the ideas around political identity and how much I had to essentially over-explain myself. And I wanted to express that as a drawing. I wanted to show all the political decisions I make in this form of a pie chart. And so you can see the two behind me. To me, infographics are just the simplest and easiest way to communicate certain ideas, like this one, shit hearing people say to me. You can see that all the slices are split equally because this is the same stuff that I hear all the time, nothing more than another. I get the same amount of the stuff that people say to me everywhere I go. Over here is when I play the deaf card. And I do want to emphasize that this drawing is a little bit more of a snapshot in time. So some of these slices have become irrelevant. They're no longer applicable right now. And so what's nice is that it's like a time machine almost a little bit to see this drawing. And the reason why I use infographics is because it actually has a lot in common with body language, in that you don't need words to communicate ideas. You can easily just draw a diagram and use some lines, and regardless of your language, your cultural background, people are able to understand each other. It's just like body language. When you smile, it means you like the food or you're enjoying someone's company. So facial expressions and body language are just like infographics, which is why I love infographics so much. Also, I use text. And the reason for that is because when communicating in person, I feel like the most fair and equal meeting ground for a person who doesn't know sign, for somebody like me who doesn't use their voice or lip read, is to use text. We can write back and forth. We can text back and forth. It's fair. I also use a lot of black and white. So this is black charcoal on white paper because I feel like I am over taking risks around being misunderstood or any miscommunication. I am trying to be as clear as possible. And maybe that comes from fear too. Welcome to my rage room. So behind me is a series of 6 drawings, and I started out with thinking about how in the beginning of my career, I had experiences where I didn't want to share my rage as a deaf person. It was something I wanted to hold off on. And then I felt safe enough in my career to be able to share. I started with one drawing. I thought about, again, infographics, but using different angles instead. And for angles to correspond to quantities. So an acute angle was not so much, whereas an obtuse angle was a lot more. I started with one drawing. So this is my rage in everyday situations. But I was still angry, and I needed another piece. So then I have rage around institutions, traveling, interpreters. And then I got to the 6th and final drawing, which is about my personal deaf rage in the art world. And so I made that drawing, finished it up, and after that, I actually fell sick for about a week. I felt like that was all the rage that I'd suppressed over all the years leaving my body. And there is a difference between rage and anger. Anger might be a response to one situation. Rage can get revealed by a big reaction to something so small. And that's because this is anger that has been built up over the years, bursting out. This is the Deaf Rage series here in this space, which was shown at the Whitney Biennial in 2019 and has come back to be put up again in 2025. So I'm going to pick out some angles, also known as rages, to share. Reflex rage here says that still there are curators to this day who think that it's okay to split my fee with the interpreters. That happens, so that's one of my rages. Another one is my full-on rage. And that's where museums will have no deaf educators, no deaf programming. I mean, I've always been proud of the work that I've done here as an educator. And when I talk to deaf people in New York, they say that the Whitney still has programming every month where these are tours led by deaf educators, always. There is a clear schedule under Whitney signs that is easy to find, and I don't see this in other cities and other states. It's a shame. I feel like the deaf community is a very visual community, and because of our limited access to education, that means that there are not that many job opportunities for us out there. So it's harder to find work. It also depends on what resources you have to get to that point. Do you have family support? Did you get the right education? Maybe, maybe not. So for me to become an artist, I don't see that many other deaf artists at my level, which is something I have fucking full-on rage about. Behind me is my video piece titled Close Readings, which I made in 2015. I had this experience where I was watching a film and found myself reading the sound captions instead of watching what was on screen. This film just happened to have a lot of soundscape and not so much dialogue. And so there was a lot of sound captions, and I saw that there were sound captions like the sound of rain hitting the window, the sound of quick drops falling from the sky. And I was reading these, and I feel like the captioner must have just felt like, okay, because there's no dialogue, I simply must add a lot of sound captions. And it really got me fascinated by this concept. So I decided to pick out video clips around the concept of voice. So there's clips with things from The Addams Family, clips from the film Ghost. I put those into a sequence, and I blurred out most of the visuals to encourage people to experience the captions instead of the film. I then asked 4 different friends to add their own sound captions to their own videos. And I told them that sound captions can mean feelings, emotions, it can be things, it can be time. So it isn't just audio input. It can be anything. And so with each of these videos, you can see what each contributor added as sound captions. Now, here we are on the 3rd floor, which is all about my echoes. So to sign echoes in ASL, you need to have first a surface. So this would be a wall. And my moving hand is sound, which then hits the surface and bounces off. It's an echo. This is echoing. And in sign, you can have a really thick echo thumping off the wall, or you could have a very thin echo peeling off the wall. What I like to do is shift the perspective of the sign for echo, and you can see what I'm doing here matches the wall in my drawings. While echo is a sound term that typically describes voices or sound repeating itself against a surface, to me, echo is a very deaf experience too. Because how I accessed my education, I typically worked with interpreters, or I had a note taker echoing the lecture. So everything was repeated back to me, and anything I said was repeated out. It's also commentary on how ableism, racism, any of the isms are perpetuated and permeated into our society. They echo as ideas over and over again, and we can't move on. And so this room has trapped the echo. It keeps going from wall to wall to wall, all day, all night. This installation has 3 cubes stacked via wires on top of each other. And it's actually an adaptation of my original piece, which had 2 projectors projecting into 2 screens in a corner. And it's titled A String of Echo Traps. Jenny Goldstein, the curator for this, recommended that we adapt this work for the stairwell. And at first I was resistant, and then I realized her brilliant idea, and I'm so glad she convinced me. I like the idea of all the different echoes being trapped in the cube, being stuck there. It actually feels like it's more suffocating than the echo trap that I created with the mural on the 3rd floor.
My name is Thomas Meder. I'm a German artist, Christine's husband, a longtime collaborator for over 12 years by now, and lucky enough to have 4 of our collaborative pieces in this show. We have 2 video pieces featuring the 2 of us called Tables and Windows and Looky Looky, respectively, and there's one straightforward animated piece called Palm Reader. And then there's one installation titled Attention.
So there's a saying in the deaf community, like if somebody's trying to get your attention so intensely, you can joke that they need to cut it out because they're eroding away your shoulder, which is one of the inspirations behind this project. Erosion is something that can show fading over time, which is what the hands are doing in this piece, constantly trying to get attention. And with the rock in the center of the 2 hands, we require that every place that we show this piece must source a local stone. So to get somebody's attention can be an experience that parents have, that a deaf person would have, that a hearing person would have, and you can do it by waving. And usually you kind of wave in a relaxed format, but if you're not getting somebody's attention and you're getting frustrated, the space that you're taking up gets smaller and smaller. Just like if you're trying to point somebody's attention to something, if they're not looking, you're going to start pointing more furiously. You can feel the weight of the increased urgency. You can feel the movement get fuller. And that is reflected through erosion. So we've been collaborating since we first met, basically. And here at the Whitney, I'm having my first solo exhibition with 4 of our collaborative pieces. I'm excited.